Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for taking time out of your busy day to join me. We're going to focus on retirement readiness. That is our focus today. And as a part of retirement readiness, I just want to, I know sometimes that preparing for the day that you are no longer going to be working can be somewhat intimidating. My goal today is to help put your mind at ease so that retirement will be not a burden, but more of a joy along the way. So that's what we're going to focus on. We're going to start today, though, by talking about a little bit about Empower. As you know, a couple of months ago, we transitioned over to Empower. And as part of our mission, it's to advance financial freedom for everyone. So we serve a wide variety of people from across the entire financial spectrum. Empower as an organization is a leader in financial planning, investing, and advice. And we are dedicated to creating financial freedom through not only our people, such as myself, but our technology as well. Now, we serve over 18 million customers today, and we are committed to helping people live for today while still saving for tomorrow, because we do truly believe in retirement and financial freedom for all. So that's a part of our mission, and that is something that really goes to the heart of what we're going to focus on today. So, Empower's goal, as I said, is to help you replace for life the income that you made while you were working. So we're here to help you plan for that retirement that you imagine. And that's something that I'm going to focus on because I always want you to imagine what your retirement is going to look like. But we're going to help you reach your financial goals, whatever they may be, and we're going to give you some guidance along the way. That's a part of my responsibility. So again, we as an organization are set up to do all of the things that will get you to a comfortable retirement. So as we have this discussion about retirement readiness, the question obviously is what is retirement readiness? And retirement readiness is simply your ability to live the retirement lifestyle that you have imagined. Now, there are some things and some factors that we will go over here that will tie into retirement readiness. So things that you can see on the screen here: Social Security, your pension benefit, other retirement plan benefits that you may have, healthcare costs. Those are some of the items that we're going to focus on. And those are the items that really make up the big picture. So we're going to break this down into a couple of areas. We're going to start with the big picture here: your retirement income, Social Security. We'll have a brief discussion on Social Security. Talk about the importance of healthcare costs and how that can affect your retirement. And I want to spend some time on your retirement budget. Then we'll get into the details of each one of these areas that make up the big picture. And then we'll talk about some other resources and considerations that you may have. So I always like to start this off by talking about the future that you imagine. And I try to get people to focus on that because, as a rule of thumb, I end up dealing with really two types of people. That individual that does everything that they can do to plan and for their retirement, and they kind of know where every dime is going to be in retirement. But I also get that person that focuses only on the date that they want to retire, and they don't think about what happens the day after. So I want everybody on this call to really start focusing today on what you think your retirement is going to look like, or more appropriately, what you imagine your retirement is going to be. And everybody on this call is going to have a different perspective of what their retirement is going to look like. You may want to, as you can see here, travel extensively. Some individuals, when they get to retirement, they want to travel. Some individuals are going to have a summer home in a cooler climate, or a winter home in a warmer climate, or some people may just want to get closer to family. I know that one, getting closer to family, I always use the example of my next door neighbors. They have a set of triplets, and the triplets, they've had their first two grandchildren. One grandchildren lives down in Texas. One grandchild lives in the state of Washington, in the Seattle area. Well, We live in Ohio, so we're right in the Midwest, in the middle of the Midwest, and they're trying to figure out where they could potentially move to get closer to each one of those grandchildren. So everybody's going to have a different perspective, but that just gives you a little bit of something to think about. So start now. Start imagining what you think your future is going to be in retirement. And as I said, everyone's going to be different. You may be one that wants to live a little bit more lavishly, or you may be one that stays closer to home. There's no right answer, but the important thing as a part of retirement readiness is to prepare now. Don't wait till you get to the day that you retire to start thinking about that. And that's an important component, as a part of retirement readiness. Another big picture item, though, is where is that income going to be coming from? Because we all know once you stop working, there's no longer a paycheck coming in. And that's why it's so important that you start planning right now for retirement. So the question becomes, how much income am I going to need, or how much does it take to actually retire? Financial professionals always recommend anywhere between 70 to 90%. I always use the number 80%, right in the middle. And that 80% means that you'll need at least 80% savings to get you through retirement. 80% of your current income is the approximate need that you're going to want to have to get you, or to have a comfortable retirement. Now, you may say, I want to have 100% of my income. Well, that means you're going to need to save more. Or maybe you only need to have 50% of your income in retirement, your current income in retirement, which will allow you to save a little bit less. But as a rule of thumb, 80% is the number that we're going to focus on throughout today's presentation. So keep that in mind. If you want to have 80% of your income, of your annual income, you're going to need to have X amount saved throughout the years. And this is something that we're always going to focus on, and we can show you how to go about doing that type of calculation. So where's that income going to come from? Well, as you can see here, Social Security is where most people think that income is where you're going to be able to live off of. Well, keep this in mind. Social Security is only set up to pay you about a third of what you're going to need to maintain your same standard of living. So that means that you're going to have other sources of income. And this is why it's so important to save as much as you can. Your 457 is a great place to start. You've got your hybrid plan, that's great. But really focus on what you can set aside, and that's something that's going to make a difference in how much income you're going to have in retirement. There may be those of you that have worked other jobs where you've got a pension plan. Maybe you were in the military and you've got a pension plan. That is something that's potentially available to you, but you may have other sources. You may have a trade that you like to do. You may have something that can generate income. You may have rental property that can generate income. There's all kinds of sources that are out there that can generate income. But for the purpose of today's discussion, it's really going to focus on your retirement plans and Social Security benefit along the way. Now, there may be things that you want to do in retirement. You may decide that you want to have a second job in retirement. That's kind of my goal. I've always thought that when the time comes and I'm ready to retire, that I'm going to do something outside of the house for 20 hours a week. Not so much for the income, but just to keep active and get out of the house, along with the volunteering and the other things that we do. So think about that again. Imagine what your retirement is going to look like, because that's going to be so important. The question is always going to come, do you have enough to live comfortably or to maintain your same standard of living? So some questions that you want to ask yourself. Am I in a position to stop working? What do my retirement expenses look like? Those expenses are going to be something that we're going to focus on as one of the details. The healthcare costs, we're going to focus on that as well. Do you want to have a side job along the way? As I said, for myself, just to get out of the house 20 hours a week or something along those lines. I think that's something that I may do. That's something that I'm thinking about, but I haven't figured out what that's going to be. So again, there's all kind of questions that you can take up to get you to where you need to be. Social Security. I'm only going to talk Social Security briefly because let's be clear. This is a subject or any one of these topics we could spend hours on, but we're only going to take about 45 minutes to get through this. But we all know what Social Security is. One of the questions that I always get is Social Security going to be there? The answer to the question is yes. Social Security, we paid into it. Our illustrious politicians are going to have to figure out a way to make sure that we fund Social Security for future generations. But I do strongly believe it's going to be there. But we've paid into Social Security over the years. So that's a portion of your retirement income. Now, I will say this, if you have not done so, I would encourage everyone on the call to go to ssa.gov, pull down your Social Security benefit statement, and review that. See what your income is going to be. One of the beauties of the Social Security website is you can kind of project what it's going to be, whether or not you're going to start taking your benefit at age 62, which is the earliest that you can take Social Security, or if you're going to wait until you reach your full retirement age or age 70. Once you've gotten to age 70, then I always recommend that that's the time that you can start taking Social Security because it does not go up anymore beyond the age of 70. But be careful if you take it early. Sometimes people say, well, I want to take my Social Security at age 62. Well, you haven't reached what we call your full retirement age. For most, that's going to be anywhere between 66 and 67, depending on when you were born. So if you were born from 1960 on, your full retirement age is 67. So consider that. Look at that. You can go to ssa.gov. All of your questions, many of your questions can be answered along the way just by going into the website, pulling down your benefit statement, see where you stand. And I also recommend that folks pull down their benefit statement to make sure that your income has been consistent. So you can see what your income levels have been. Make sure that what you've paid in taxes over the years show up on that statement, because I have seen situations where their Social Security benefit numbers are not accurate. So you can go in before retirement and get those numbers adjusted as need be. So again, just go to ssa.gov and you can get the information that you need along the way. Something else that is important to discuss is healthcare. The cost of healthcare. As we all know, healthcare costs are always rising. So it's going to be important that as you are going through this retirement readiness process, that you factor in what your potential healthcare costs are going to be. So as you can see here, for the average healthy 65-year-old currently, you're going to spend approximately $6,500 on an annual basis. Now, that number more than likely is going to rise. Now, there are some things that you can do along the way. You can obviously continue to save, but know that there's going to be Medicare that is out there. Medicare is something that will assist you in those costs, but again, it's not going to pick up all of the costs of healthcare. So as you approach Medicare, is something that can be exhausting. Again, this is another one of those areas where we could spend a half a day just going through the basics. Great website to go to, medicare.gov, and a lot of your questions can be answered along the way. So there are things that you can do. You know, the plans, if you have your HSA or flexible spending accounts, those are areas that you want to put money into along the way. So consider that. There are just a multitude of things that go into Medicare. You know, you probably are starting to see, if you haven't already, Medicare Advantage commercials. That's that Part C. So think about that. Medicare starts at the age of 65. Now, Just because you've reached age 65 doesn't mean that you got to stop working. Um, Understand the rules of Medicare. Reach out to Medicare. Questions that you have, ask those questions. You want to do all these things before you get to retirement. And Medicare is just one of those big picture items, or healthcare cost is one of those items that you really need to focus on along the way. So again, you can go to Medicare.gov. It's a user-friendly website, so a lot of the questions that you may have, you can get answered. And as I said, it is something that can really be stressful. So I would rather for you to worry about it, learn about it up front, rather than getting to, say, age 65 and saying, oh my gosh, I've got to go in and sign up for Medicare. Well, that's something that you need to consider, because just because you turned 65 does not mean that you have to sign up for Medicare. Now, you will once you stop working, but if you're already on a retiree health care plan, or an employer health care plan, you can still stay on that. So understand what the rules are, understand what the options are. Again, just go to Medicare.gov, and that will assist you along the way. Now, a big picture item that I think is very important, it's one of those areas that I like to focus on for everyone, or get everyone to focus on, is your budget. Now, oftentimes I will ask the question when I'm having one-on-one consultations with individuals, do you have a budget? And oftentimes people say, well, yeah, I kind of know how much I spend. And my objective is to get everyone to put pencil to paper. Write it down. Understand what your spending habits are, as well as what your spending goals are. Because sometimes your habits can get in the way of the goals. And it's very easy to spend more than you want to, or you see that extra money in your checking account or savings account, and it allows you to maybe go out to dinner more often than you necessarily need to or want to. So, with retirement budgeting, you start with your current budget, because it's your current budget that's going to make the difference in how you spend in retirement. So keep that in mind. If you haven't done so, put pencil to paper. Put down all of the things that you're spending on, all of the income that you've got coming in. If you are married, I strongly encourage that you and your spouse do those things. Put together your budget, because it is really important. It's just one of those areas that when retirement rolls around, you really want to know where every dime is going. This is also why it's important to have an emergency savings plan set aside. So when that emergency comes up, and it will, there's always something. It can be a car repair or a home repair. Um, your winter's coming. Your battery goes out in your car. Rather than putting that on the credit card, maybe you've got the emergency savings plan that you can dip into and pay for that repair for your car. So again, I challenge everyone on the call to put together a budget. Now, it doesn't have to be real elaborate. We've provided a budget worksheet that you can utilize. I have seen very extensive Excel spreadsheets where people have every single penny that they spend on. If that is something that you want to do, fine. But I say at least have a basic budget and a basic understanding as to what you're spending. And then prioritize your spending needs. What am I spending on? There are certain things that you spend on that you have to spend on. You've got to have a place to stay. You got to buy groceries. You got to have transportation. You got healthcare costs. Those are priority items. But then, as a part of your budget, there are those items that you want, or things that you want to do. If you want to travel, fine. If you do like going out to dinner with your friends, put that as a part of your budget. It's very simple. It's not anything complicated, but as I say, I think As you write it down, it will help you reach all of your financial goals along the way. The basic foundation of a budget is very simple. What are your current monthly expenses? Now, with those expenses, you have those fixed expenses versus variable expenses. Uh, the things that you need to spend money on versus the things that you want to spend money on. And that doesn't change in retirement. So again, a part of this retirement readiness process, this is a big picture item for you. And think about, what do you think your expectations are going to be in retirement? So um, let's say you have a mortgage and you're working on paying that mortgage off. That's great. If you will have a mortgage in retirement, okay, that's one of those fixed expenses that you're going to need to have for a while. But if your mortgage is paid off, um, you're still going to have your property taxes, you're still going to have your utility costs, you're still going to have your maintenance costs, insurance costs. Those things don't necessarily go away. So again, think about what you're spending your money on, and then focus on the money that you've got coming in, your Social Security benefit, retirement benefits, maybe your second job or career even benefits. Put all of that together. And as I said, put pencil to paper, because it's really going to help you visualize what your needs are going to be in retirement. And again, I don't want you to be that person that I spoke of earlier that focuses on that date, that person that says October 1st is my retirement date, and then they get there and they don't have a clue what's going to happen on the 2nd of October, or how they're going to pay their bills, or how much they're going to need to do all of those things. Because as we get into retirement, there are always going to be additional expenses. I just spoke of home improvements. You may have a hobby that you enjoy doing. I can tell you from personal experience, a big expense right there in the bottom row in the middle, grandkids. My wife loves to spend on our grandkids. And that's just an expense that's a battle that I'm never going to win. So, that is an expense, and that's the type of thing that you want to factor in, because there's with grandchildren, there's always an expense. If it's a birthday, or if it's a part of their educational planning for their future, or if it's my grandson needed a new baseball glove. What does he do? Grandpa, can you help me? Are you going to say no? No, you're not. So that can be an issue. One other important area that many of us do face is taking care of our loved ones, our parents. That can be an expense that we've got to consider, because we're all living a little bit longer. And, if you're all blessed to have your parents in retirement, that can sometimes become an expense as well. Just the care for your loved one. So a multitude of things that can come about, but you've got to start thinking about what those potential expenses are going to be, not only now, but what they're going to be in the future. Now, I want to cover briefly investing in your retirement accounts, because this is a part of your goals and your strategy, and you've got to be prepared for how that money is going to continue to grow for you along the way. So when we talk about investing, really want to understand some of the terminology that is out there. And I'm just going to briefly focus on some of this terminology. Four key terms that you will hear that are used quite often. The first one is an asset class. So when you hear that term, an asset class, it is simply a grouping, if you will, of similar types of investments, like stocks, bonds, money markets. Those are what we call asset classes. So very familiar. You got a stock, a bond, or a money market, or a cash alternative, if you will. Those are asset classes. Within those asset classes, then there's what we call asset allocation, which is simply choosing how much to invest in each one of those individual asset classes when you're putting your portfolio together. The next is diversification. Diversification is simply mixing your investments among the different asset classes, or even within an asset class. So within the stock asset class, there are large company stocks, mid-sized company stocks, small-sized company stocks. There's growth versus value. That's diversification, even within an asset class. You can do the same with bonds. You've got long-term, short-term, intermediate-term bonds. You've got inflation-type bonds. There's corporate bonds, government bonds. So you can diversify your within an asset class along the way. But diversification is something that is very important for your portfolio. And the last bullet there is rebalancing. Now, rebalancing is just simply adjusting your asset allocation so that it aligns with your ever-changing investment strategy. Uh, Good way of looking at this as we are approaching retirement. Maybe you've gone from being a more aggressive individual to becoming a more conservative uh, individual along the way. That's rebalance. So you'll rebalance your portfolio or shift your allocation over time so that it becomes more conservative. Particularly as we get closer to retirement, we want to make sure that the money that we've worked so hard to accumulate, we want to make sure that that money lasts all the way through retirement. So these are some basic things that you will hear when you're having a discussion about your investments overall and why you should or maybe not be in certain investments over time. Something that's always important is asking yourself, how much risk should you take? That's a question that I get a lot. And I will always put this back on your shoulders by simply asking a question because everybody's risk tolerance is going to be different. So one of the questions that I always ask and try to get you to think about on a scale of 1 to 7, 1 being very conservative, 7 being very aggressive, where do you fit? What's your comfort level? Now, the further you are away from retirement, the more aggressive you should be because you've got years before you reach retirement and you can afford to be more aggressive early on. But as we start to approach retirement or get within 5 to 10 years of retirement, we want to start to transition to a slightly more conservative portfolio. So that doesn't mean that you go all the way down to a 1 on that scale of 1 to 7. Most of us will stay in that 4 to 5 range all the way through retirement. But ask yourself, how comfortable am I with my investment strategy? And I will tell you, the more comfortable you are or you become is based on your level of education, understanding why you're in a certain investment, understanding how those investments work. Think about it. We all want to make money. We all want our money to grow, but think about some of the risks that come with being a little bit more aggressive. And once you understand the risk, you can have a greater understanding of the volatility that exists within the market. So keep that in mind. Ask yourself that question or answer that question on a scale of 1 to 7. What's your risk tolerance? How comfortable are you with risk? Because that's going to be an important concept for you all the way through retirement. Another item that is important, we've worked hard to save our money over the years. Now we have to, once we're in retirement, we got to figure out how much money do we need to take out of our account monthly, quarterly, or annually to help maintain that same standard of living. So we'll focus on that. This is one of the details. Now, one of the things that is important to understand when we're talking about that withdrawal strategy, and again, this is another one of those areas that we could spend a couple of hours on talking about, but I just want to break this down into something that we can all really understand. There are some key components when we're withdrawing money. One of the things that I often say to individuals is try to take out no more than say 5% of what your balance is. So in other words, if you have $100,000 saved in your retirement account, you're going to take out 5% on an annual basis. That's $5,000 a year, which comes out to about $416 a month. That's a part of your income stream. So hopefully your asset allocation that we were just talking about, your investments are growing at a rate higher than 5%. so that what you're ultimately doing is just replacing that money every year. So that's the part of that withdrawal strategy. But there are some things that go into that as well. We don't know what our future expenses are going to be. Remember, the cost of goods and services is always increasing, so we've got to factor that in as well. But there are a couple of things that I really want you to focus on. The investment returns, depending on your risk, depending on how your portfolio um, is set up, over time, you should have something that's going to be relatively steady. But two areas that are very important. The first one I'll talk about is inflation, and I'll talk about the inflation a little bit more in a few slides. But inflation is something we all know. Um, Inflation factors into everything that we do. All of our costs, all of our goods and services that we purchase. We go to the grocery store, everything is more than it once was. That is something that we have to make sure that we have, or we're able to, don't let inflation override our income over time. The other thing that is important to note is that very first one, and this is one that folks don't take into consideration many times, and that's longevity. You can have as many years in retirement as you worked, as the years that you've worked. So we have to make sure that we don't put ourselves in a position where we outlive our income. Longevity is something that is important. There will be someone on this call that will live beyond the age of 100. It's just a fact of life. We're all living longer. We'd all like to live a long and prosperous life. But we don't want to be in a situation where we've outlived our income. And along the way, we've all known someone who is retired. They're living their best life. Life is great. But we've also known that individual that didn't do enough planning for retirement, that now they want to retire or they've retired and now they've got to go back to work because they have to, not because they want to. So keep that in mind. Longevity, inflation, those are things that are always very important along the way. Now, another detail that we've got to take into consideration, taxes. I always like to joke, your favorite uncle, Uncle Sam, he's always got his hand out. So this is something that's important to note. Your Social Security benefit, your retirement assets that you withdraw, they're all subject to taxation. And that's one of those things that a lot of people, they think they don't realize or they don't take into consideration that your Social Security benefits is taxable income. Keep that in mind. It's something that's very important. And what you have to pay in taxes can really affect your overall budget along the way. So this is another area that you've got to put some emphasis on along the way. So as we talk about your income that is taxable in retirement, generally you're going to have your pre-tax contributions, the money that your employer has kicked in on your behalf, that's pre-tax. And that money is subject to taxation when you take it out, both the contributions and the earnings. So you've got to focus on that. How much am I going to have to pay every year in taxes? I will share this with you. One of the things that I have unfortunately run into on occasion with individuals that start taking their Social Security benefit and they say, oh, okay, I'm getting $1,500, $2,000 a month in Social Security. Great. So they get that $2,000 a month, that's $24,000 a year, and they didn't pay any taxes on it. At the end of the year, and they're doing their taxes, and then they find out they owe Uncle Sam, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. You're not going to be happy. So please understand that money that you get from earning or from your Social Security benefit and your retirement plans is subject to taxation along the way. If you don't know how much you're going to be taxed on, always go to a tax specialist, someone that can assist you or answer questions along the way as to what you can expect to pay in taxes. A tax professional can really help you navigate through all the laws and any special situations that you may have along the way. So speak with someone that can help you. Inflation, as I said, I was going to talk about this. And we've all dealt with this over the years. We can look back and think about how much something cost and say, wow, I wish what I'm spending today uh, would cost what I paid for it years ago. So obviously, everything is becoming more expensive. And as I said earlier, you're going to have two types of expenses along the way. You're going to have those fixed expenses, those things that you know you've got to spend money on every month. And then you're going to have variable expenses. They're going to change from month to month. So figure out what those expenses are going to be. Again, those fixed expenses are going to include the things like your rent or mortgage payment or your car payments. Those variable expenses are going to be things like your groceries or entertainment or the cost of gas to put in your car. That's going to be something that's going to vary from month to month. But these are expenses that are all a part of inflation. And I always like to show this slide here because if you're within 5 years of retirement or so, you can look back and remember what the cost of items were back in 1980. And I think this is a good example for everyone to just see. Uh, it would be nice to purchase a home for $76,000 in today's money. But as you can see, what was a home value in 1980 of $76,000, the equivalent of that today is $395,000 for that same home. A gallon of milk. We go into the grocery store. It used to be a buck. Uh, in this instance, a buck 12 for a gallon of milk. Now it's almost $4 for a gallon of milk. These are average prices, so you can kind of see what you would be spending along the way for these type of items. And it's important that you take under consideration inflation. Inflation has always been there. It's never going to go away, but you really have to factor that in for your retirement and make sure that you've got those expenses covered or you've got the savings that will uh, be a part or offset the cost of goods and services that inflation brings about. Another area that often people don't think about in retirement is estate planning. Now, it's important to keep in mind that your different retirement accounts are all going to be a part of your estate. Everything that you own is going to be a part of your estate. So we're talking about your car, your house, your checking and savings accounts, your life insurance, your furniture, everything is a part of your estate. And this is something that you really need to understand and start to plan on. Because the one thing about your estate is you can't take it with you. So what do you do with the items that you have? What are you passing on to your family members? So it is important. Don't wait until you get into retirement. I'm going to suggest that you start that process now, thinking about where these assets, who they're going to go to. I'm going to say this now and I'll repeat it a little bit later. If you've not done so, I'm going to encourage everyone to log into your Empower account, review your beneficiary information. Don't do it. Don't just think about your retirement accounts, your banking information, any financial accounts that you have. You want to make sure that you have the proper beneficiary designations along the way because it is really important. Because if you don't, then that becomes a part of your estate. We'll talk about that in a second. But your estate planning does go beyond just the things that you own. End of life medical care is a part of your estate. So if you will need to have a health care plan. So if you become disabled, what does your family do? What are your wishes? This is a part of your estate. Uh, One of the unfortunate, or maybe fortunate things that a lot of grandparents are taking care of grandchildren in this day and age. And if something were to happen to you, what happens to those children? or I have a niece that is special needs. Her parents have put together a special needs trust that will take care of her if and when they pass. So those are things that are all a part of your estate. So how do you handle that? Every one of us should have a will, and it doesn't matter if you've got a large estate or a modest estate. Uh, Start off with a basic will, and that will say what happens to your assets as you go along. If your estate gets larger, um, maybe a trust is something that will benefit you. Um, these are things that you want to have. And the reason why having a will or a trust is so important, if you don't have one, what happens to your assets? Well, if you don't have a beneficiary listed in your retirement account, or you don't have a will or a trust established, and yes, you can make your trust your beneficiary for your assets in your retirement account. But if you don't have one and you pass on, then it's what's called your assets are intestate. And intestate simply means that you did not have a will or a beneficiary, and that means that probate becomes the issue that you're going to have to, or your loved ones are going to have to deal with. So when you've got a beneficiary in place in your retirement plan, for example, and a loved one passes on, those assets will then pass on to the spouse or the children, whomever they've designated. When you don't, then the courts have to step in and your assets are going to be taxed before they get passed on to someone. So keep that in mind. It is very important that you consider these options along the way. Talk with a legal advisor to get your assets set up properly. Go into your Empower account, any financial accounts that you have. Make sure that you've got the proper designation beneficiaries that will protect your assets along the way. Because I don't think any of us want the government to step in and start taxing our assets where they could be passed on directly to our loved ones. Again, this is something that you want to keep in mind. So we've covered a lot of things. I'm just going to cover just a couple more things, and then we can open it up for questions along the way. What's next? First thing that I'm going to suggest that you do, if you've not done so, enroll for access to your Empower account. At the bottom of the screen, all you need to do is go to empowermyretirement.com and register for access, and then you can view your account online. And when you've registered for access, I usually recommend that you do it on a computer, but once you've created your user ID and password, you can also do it on your cell phone. But once you've created it, if you want to do it on your cell phone, just go to your appropriate app store, download the Empower app, and you create that user ID and password. It will be the same user ID and password on your computer or tablet as you would be on your cell phone as well. But when you go into your Empower account, there is just a wealth of information. Move beyond just looking at your account value, what we call your personal dashboard. You will log in, and as you can see at the top of the screen there, you'll see a pie chart there. And in that pie chart, it will say whether or not you are on target for reaching that 80% number that we talked about at the beginning of our discussion. This is something that you can adjust, and it'll tell you whether or not you're on track to reach that 80% number, or give you suggestions on things that you may need to do to help you get there. You can, there's a yellow tab there, that's your Social Security tab. As I spoke of earlier, go to ssa.gov, you click on that yellow tab, and then you, based on the year that you plan on retiring, you can put that benefit, your Social Security benefit for the age that you plan to retire, you can put that in there. Now, I will tell you, for everyone, the dashboard defaults for everyone at $50,000 income. So you will need to go in, update your annual income, put that information. but it's a very user-friendly system, and it's packed full of information. That's just the dashboard, but there's a learning center that you can find under the planning tab. There's My Financial Path that you can find under the planning tab. Under that My Financial Path there in the learning center, there are articles and videos on a wide variety of areas that can help you get to the retirement that you imagine. So I encourage everyone to go in and review that information. Once you've reviewed the information, if you have questions along the way, you can always reach out to our counseling center, our participant service center. They're available Monday through Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Saturdays, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time as well. At the top of the screen, you will see a web address. If you write down that web address, you'll have this information. These slides will be available. Or at the bottom of the screen, there's a QR code. If you click on that QR code, it will take you to my personal scheduling link. I am dedicated to the ND-PERS plan. So at any point you want to have a conversation about your account with Empower or your ND-PERS account, we can go over it. All you need to do is click on that QR code or just type in your browser that web address up at the top of the page. Either way, that will get you to the link to my scheduling calendar. I've got appointments scheduled out there every month, so all you need to do is click on that link and that will assist you. I will be able to assist you along the way.